Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing excellent. We are finally ready to pull this motor. So the first thing I need to do is get our V-mount intercooler setup taken out. Then I need to get a few things unbolted from there. I'm going to pull it separate from the transmission because we're going to throw it on the engine stand and get some work done on her. So I'm just going to go ahead and get cracking. Alright, so we're pretty good. I got everything ancillary off of here that I wanted to take off. The transmission is unbolted but sitting there. We've got a jack stand down there and a jack behind to support the transmission just in case it does anything squirrely. So now I'm going to go ahead and get a strap wrapped around here and start tugging her up. And oh yeah, I got to undo the motor mounts. But first I want to put the strap, get it supported on that obviously, and then I'll undo the motor mounts. Okay kids, here we go. Oh, bending that. That's not good. Okay, I need to separate it from the transmission. I'm gonna let her down a little bit. Oof. Okay, let me double check for any missing bolts, but it looks like the transmission or bolts are still in there rather. It looks like the transmission's starting to separate. Might just need some extra help because it's on some stiff mounts back there. And I just do not want to drop it right now by myself, get under the car. No, it's starting to let go. I'll just give it some extra motivation. This ought to do the trick, Gordon Freeman style. Okay, it's starting to separate a little bit better. Whew. Okay, let's try again. Oh, there we go. It's off the motor mounts. Come on, let go. Let go. Oh, it's so close. It's moving little by little every time I do that. Little by little. Okay, I'm gonna use 2 hands. I'll be back. Okay, yeah, I had to get underneath because that's where it was binding. Just a little bit of pressure, pop right out. So here we go. Come on up and out, girl. Keep going, keep going. Okay, what's still connected to the wiring harness? Oh, oil level sensor. Okay, okay, so she's free. Ow. Giant void of burnt mess on the ground. It's just barely sitting here. Obviously I just wanted to lower it down while I get the engine stand so it's not just sitting here suspended by one strap. Unfortunately I thought I had more, but I only found one, but I've used a strap like that to tow a whole car, so I wasn't too concerned. I know that it looks a little iffy when you're seeing it come out, but came out great. And now I'm gonna pop her up on the engine stand. The engine stand bolts in here to the accessory mount bracket, so I got to just figure out which nut and bolts I need to do that and bring it over here, and then we'll pop it on there and kind of go through and see what's ruined and how everything looks. The whole time I was struggling like an idiot. Got my workout in, but yeah, just attach this first and then put it in this big hole up here. So I'm going to give that a try now. And there you have it. The hardest way possible to get your 13B on the engine stand. Absolutely. But there it is. I had to use this again to rotate it with the alternator bracket on this stand here because I could not get it to turn. Probably a combination of weight and rust in here. So I did spray WD-40, but it was not letting go. So now she's there, pin's in. Let's go ahead and let this down and see what happens. Hopefully nothing bad. Nope. We're all good. Finally. Whew. That was an adventure. All right. So, now that she's here, let's get a good look around. Maybe I can move her a little bit to some better light. So obviously lots of burnt wires. That's the knock sensor wires there. This is the crank angle sensor adapter to the Haltech harness. Gonna have to pin out something else there. Hopefully it's good here. It looks like it took a little bit of heat right there on the connector, but hopefully in there is all good. This was one of the grounds. That's burnt down. The alternator belts surprisingly look great, but obviously I'm going to go ahead and replace them. Hope the alternator's in good condition, because it was a pain in the butt to find a high amp alternator that worked. Not that there wasn't plenty available, but I got one that was just completely would not work with my setup. Took it to the auto parts store, they tested it, and they're like, no, it's fine, it's working. I'm like, no, it's not. Let's see what the boost solenoid connector, oh boy. Those are messed up. Hopefully the solenoid itself is okay. The vacuum lines over here are in fine condition. Obviously this is part of the fuel injector harness there. This injector back here is completely toasted. That's a shame, because I'm sure the inner workings of the injector are fine, because there wasn't anything internal or fueling problem that happened with anything weird. It had a great fuel filter, but with that connector all fried, I'm sure the connector that's on the body of the injector is done for. This one looks okay, and the two down here look okay, but the wire's all burnt off there. I don't like that, so I'm gonna have to look at that and figure that out, why that happened, why these are so loose. So that's interesting. And I mean, oil filters obviously fried. This is one of the sensors. That's not coming off, that's just the actual sensor body spinning. This sensor down here, so one of these is temp and one is pressure. This is pressure, I think. And oh no, that was an afterthought thing I was working on down there to try and make the stock gauges work. So that's just the stock location for the oil pressure sensor. This is the, it looks like pressure and temp, but this actual billet piece is fine, so we'll be able to reuse all that. And I mean, that's kind of the summary of the damage. So I actually have two new injectors, 1700X's, which are very expensive, but I got them, so we'll be able to throw those on to replace at least this one. I'll take them all off, have them flow matched as well. What else? I don't know. Oh yeah, the turbo. Obviously the turbo looks fine. We covered it up while we were grinding in the engine bay, working on the V-mount intercooler setup, but we are going to pull the front of this off, blow it all out with air, and I'm going to clean this up and get it looking nice again. While I'm doing that, I might clean up the center section, just because, you know, this isn't fire related, but this is just from heat cycling the cast iron, which I believe this is, or yeah, must be. So or steel. And you know, we'll replace all the hoses just in case anything happened down here. I know the lighting isn't good right here, so I apologize, but I'm gonna call it a night, because that was quite a wrestling match I had with this. I'm gonna undress her a little bit more, and then we're gonna clean her up and just start prepping it for the swap. It's the next evening, and I spent some time getting her all undressed. And actually what I've done right now, well, first of all, let's take a look here. I mean, there's, you know, normal dirtiness for having an engine in a car, but there's also a lot of film and stuff from, I don't even know if it's film, it's like powder, and it's like oxidation from all the fire retardant that was sprayed in there, even though we tried to spray it off. You can see it all down in there. Good news is it doesn't look like there were any leaks besides what happened there. So see, this is all burnt up here. But what I've done here is I just put duct tape on both sides of some cardboard and made little templates to kind of block these off, and bolted things on. So the oil filter, what is this, water pump housing, this is facing down, so I think that'll be okay. And I covered off the intake and exhaust ports, and I did my best right here to cover off these primary injectors, because I'm not going to power wash it. Oh yeah, and the oil feed, I'm not going to power wash it, but I am going to spray water over it. And while I'm sure it'd be fine to let it dry out and things like that, it's just I want to do my best to avoid any unnecessary challenges, because we want to move as quickly as possible, which is why I'm working late at night. So I'm going to go ahead and wheel it over to the area where my hose can reach. I'm going to take over the turbo and the intake manifold as well, and just start to get those things soaking into greaser, cleaned up. Just going to use like a scrub brush, like this guy right here, some Scotch-Brite, and then on the aluminum pieces, depending on how they clean up, probably the wire wheel, and get everything nice and pretty. What in the redneck wedding? There's 13B in my yard. So last night I moved it over here on the drop cloths and cardboard, and I just sprayed it with some foaming degreaser and rinsed it off, and already looks much better. Still a lot to get off on there, but I'm basically just going to rinse and repeat with that. Let's get scrubbing in some of these corners, and obviously I'm going to have to take little pieces like this off and polish them with the wire wheel, spray them. I do want to get some of the rust to come off and respray a little bit with some satin clear just to reseal it, but I'm mostly going to focus on the top. Some paint's come off down here, but I'm not really concerned about that. It's going to be a daily driven car, hopefully, or mostly daily driven, so it's not going to be the prettiest engine anyway. So yeah, I'm just going to make sure everything's looking good. Going to get some of the rust out of these pulleys here. And I think that happened, again, it's just on the surface, but because all that corrosive kind of retardant that got sprayed in from the fire extinguishers was sandwiched in there with the belts. So yeah, enjoy clips of me cleaning. Well, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out after just a brief cleaning. And like I said, this is going to be a very used motor, so it's not going to be show car clean, but it's looking pretty good. Most of the rust has all come off, and we're going to give it another go once it's had some time to dry off and I can just actually wipe things off, because if you can see in here, as I wipe with my finger, more and more is coming off. It's on my finger now, so just need to give this one time to dry and then give it another once over. Probably vacuum it again, blow it out with some from the air compressor, and I think we'll be good to go over here. Just touch up a few places. The next challenge is going to be the turbo. As I said, I'd like to get this center section touched up a little bit. Obviously, if you can see down here, this is all that retardant from the fire there, and I can actually unbolt this front face and clean that up and spray out the inside. And then I can show you here as well. There's lots of corrosion there on top of the manifold. Lower intake manifold as well, just needs to be cleaned up. There's some improvements I'd like to do. This is for the oil injectors, and we just put these plugs in there the right size, but obviously we could do a little bit better and actually put like a plug similar to this. I'm also thinking I'm going to have Jeff weld close a bunch of these extra vacuum lines, because when we were dyno tuning, we kept running into the problem when we hit high boost, they would just blow off, the little plugs we put on there. So if we can weld some of those shut and just narrow things down to only exactly what we need for a vacuum source, that'd be great. And then the upper intake manifold. Now this is the most messed up. So if you look down here, this is where a lot of the wiring harness that caught on fire was routed underneath, right through here. So this is all charred up. The bracket for the throttle cable is really mangled. The BAC was mostly melted, so I need to clean this up. We'll be using off the one from the S5. And I want to get some new studs here, because as you can see, these are stripped. So, and then again, figure out how many of these do I actually need, which one of these are the best ones. So if you know, please leave me a note in the comments below. And also want to just spray them all back up with satin clear, because again, the top of the engine here is not going to show. The intake manifold comes up, so those pieces actually will show, and unfortunately they look way worse than this. But I have a flight to catch, so I'm going to pick this up in a few days. I'll be back in just a moment. And I'm back. For me, it's been a couple weeks, not even 1 second, but I got some great work done. I'm very happy with where we're at. So let me show you around the 13B. So obviously I did a ton of cleaning off camera. I just figured, like, oh, flashlight, that you know, you don't need to watch me wire wheel stuff and degrease it, and it took a long time actually. So yeah, let's take you through it. So alternator's cleaned up. The front has actually got a clear coat on it because I took this off, but I didn't want to mess around with disassembling completely, so the back is just polished. Wheel double pulleys polished. Obviously I got the swirl pod attached on here, new gaskets everywhere that we took off. This is just sitting on here because I mentioned I have to get new hardware here, and I need to get some new hardware here and here, but that's good. These manifolds were the hardest to polish. They were the most greased up, and previously I had put clear coat on them, but that got burnt basically, and everything got seated in there, so I'd use paint stripper, degreaser, brake cleaner, and ultimately wire wheeled it. And still you can see, like, in places it's not super clean, but overall, you know, again, this car is going to be driven, so I can't, you know, waste too much time on that because it is going to get dirty again. But that's cleaned up. The turbo looks great. We put our new guard on here, cleaned up the aluminum front face, put clear coat on there. Two things I'm really excited for is I actually remade this oil feed line with the same diameter steel tubing, but gave it this nice bend here because this is a coolant temp sensor, and it was before like pressing right on the back of it. So obviously I need to take this burnt one out, but and that goes right over here, so that's a great nice fit. And then down here for the turbo drain, now what it had before is kind of one of these deals to a barb or fitting here and here. But what I did is I took it, and this won't move, this is a heat shield and it's really tight in there by the wastegate actuator bracket, but it I turned it to -8 and put this loop in it. And the reason I did that is because before it had to make this really tight turn here, and it always kinked a little bit with the rubber hose. And when I first tried to put the -8 fittings on here, I was putting it more direct, and no matter what shape I did, it was kinking. So here you can see this fitting's a little loose, so if I need to, I can rotate this down. I don't want to have it swoop down if I don't have to, so I'm thinking something like this. And then the heat shield that came with the kit, I was able to put right up in here. So I'm gonna, and it actually goes all the way up to the fitting. So the hot side of the turbos here has the Inconel, then this, and then I'll clamp it on here with a hose clamp just to keep it in place, and then it goes away from the hot side of the turbo. So I'm really happy with that as well. Let's see what else. I mean, that's pretty much it. Just got it all cleaned up. Did get the oil pedestal cleaned up as best I could and put back on here as well. So we'll get the sensors in there. And yeah, I'm very excited because if you saw in the beginning of the video how it looked coming out, whew. So anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Over the next week or so, we're going to be getting the other FC ready to receive the engine, and we actually need to take the accessories off and get them on here and get that cleaned up. So lots of cleaning. I want to clean the transmission when I take it out, so some of that will be off camera. Obviously it's not the most exciting thing, some of it will be on, but looking forward to that content as well. But right now, I think since I'm going to take the FC down for a while, I'm going to go give her a bath and take her for a drive. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Stay kind to each other out there. And when they ask you, tell them you want more.